So as I travel from shop to shop, each shop that I go into, kind of want to test my skills just a little bit. There was no formal test here, but I did get to do this awesome Harley seat behind me. That way they could see how my work kind of lined up with their work. And every shop that I go to, I try to basically reinvent myself and do the work in the same style and format that the shop currently does their work in, so when they give it to the customer, it matches their expectations. So now that you've seen the seat behind me, I'm going to take you through the build process. So something that I wanted to talk about, as I travel from place to place, every shop has their own niche. And of course, we all like to do custom high-end stuff. I mean, that's just about any upholsterer, any fabricator's dream. But that doesn't always necessarily mean it makes money. So that's what I kind of want to talk about with you. What do you like doing, and what do you feel that brings your shop money?
We have a couple different avenues we actually pursue with that. Obviously, everybody likes doing hot rods and sheet rods, but you walk around, we do a lot of exotics, we do a lot of motorcycle seats. We try not to have necessarily like a niche market. So we don't necessarily pursue like, oh, I'm going to try and do a ton of marine work. I'm going to try and do a ton of convertible tops. I'm going to try and do a ton of street rods. Really, we'll do whatever comes in the door, provided they want to pay to have us do the quality of work. We do find our niche market does be a lot of the exotics and stuff like that, because it's a little bit of a different animal. They take a little bit more maintenance, they're a little bit more expensive to own. The owners tend to want a little bit more out of them, so we tend to pursue that as far as an app. It gives us the ability to be able to afford to do them well. Also, the owners get a good result. They're kind of fun projects because they're a little bit hard to do. And we also have the luxury of being paired next door with a high-end shop that does a lot of maintenance on Ferraris, Lamborghinis, Maseratis, things like that. We have that connection. We can come back and forth. So I personally enjoy working on these because honestly, they're fun. I like the stuff that challenges of it.
Oh, absolutely. And what I want to do is, for all the trimmers out there, I want to let you know that every shop, like I was saying, has its own little niche. And I want to go over a couple of those so you can see different avenues that you might want to go down. When I was in the Wilmington area, the DES shop, they were pretty much putting on leather kits and doing a lot of stereo work. As when I went over to the Atlanta area, was working with Plus Upholstery, he was more in the Porsche market, doing Porsche tops and Porsche dashes. And like you said, you're more in the exotic field. That's your, not to say niche, but that's kind of where you're liking to gravitate to a little bit. One thing that I wanted to say, across the board, I found that shops that charge by the hour typically were the most successful. Would you find that to be true?
I absolutely find that to be true, because if you charge by the hour, it gives you more ability to do your craft correctly. If you say if I took this job here and just threw out an arbitrary number, say I was doing a set of seats in this car for $2,000. Now I've got a fixed figure in my head, and I know I have to eat that amount of time in order to do this set of seats in that time. If I charge by the hour, maybe this job ends up being 22, maybe it's 25, maybe it's $3,000, but I know I can take the time to do it properly. The customer's getting a better end result. Everything just works, especially on a custom job. We bring in something like the Olds or like the Nomad, we just don't know how long it's actually going to take. And if we throw a number out there, we're screwed.
There's so many variables, exactly. So that gives you a little bit of wiggle room. And not only that, but it builds your clientele to where when they tell their friends, they kind of already know what to expect when they come in.
We may spend 5 hours on something, we may spend 10 hours on something, it all makes a difference, and the customers pay it, and they're all happy because they know we're treating them fairly because they're getting what they paid for.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we pretty much went over all the little different options. Like I said, I wanted to give you guys out there something to look at, something to think about. Let me know what you think works best for your shop. You can go ahead and drop a line below, and I'll comment on it later today, maybe tonight or something like that. And that way other people can kind of see what's working in different shops. Brad, I really appreciate this. And
I appreciate having you here.
I've been having a great time here, so let's get back to work.
Yeah, let's do it.
So Brian came up to me and said, hey, can you rep this piece here? I gave it a good look over, a lot of curves, a lot of bends in it. I was like, in one piece? He was like, yeah. Looked at it again. I was like, I don't know, I'll give it a shot. He goes, I could do it. I'm like, Challenge accepted. Bam, all done. Now just gotta hit round 2. Now there was a lot of steaming and a lot of stretching in that, and we were using Alcantara suede, but it was possible. All right, we're gonna do a little bit of foam repair. These are gonna be the leather seats that we're gonna make. This is a newer style foam, so it's not really beat up that bad, but you can see on the back where the metal frame's kind of cut through a little bit, so we're gonna glue that together, stick it, and then put a little bit of burlap in there. Now this particular burlap is actually a tighter weave, so it's a little more dense, I should say. And the nice thing about this is that there's no thickness to it, so it's not gonna make the foam hold off of the frame at all. It's just gonna protect it from getting cut through. As well as once we're all done, we're gonna put a little steam on it and bring it back to its full life. And that's pretty much it. And then we're gonna get ready to cover it up. All right, so it's tip and trick time. You're gonna wanna pay attention here. Now, Brad showed me something up here at Stitcht Interiors that I think is really cool and I wanna pass along. Most high-end shops cut the little access on the back of the material, the extra material here. But what he showed me is he'll actually run a stitch line very close to the seam. That way, if you cut it a little too close, you have 2 thread lines to keep this material sewed together. I'm gonna show you how close we get. And it's just something I want to pass along because, like I said, it's really neat. I've been cutting the backside of the material off for quite a while, but I've never thought to do that little step there. And I'm going to have a couple more, so you're going to want to pay attention over the next few minutes. So you're basically getting the needle as close to the thread line as possible. And you're going to run, obviously, you're going to do your little reverse there, and you're just going to follow that along. Now, you're going to want to make sure that the material's pulled so you don't catch any of the extra material as you run around. This is actually a pretty curved piece here, and I have no issue running that extra stitch line. And I'm hoping that you guys can see how close it is to the other stitch line, and then I'm going to trim it and kind of show you how much we actually trim off. It makes this piece actually turn inside out very nice and clean, and I know it's going to lay very well on the seat. So I wanted to show this trick. So now you can see how close it's actually sewn together. I'm going to go ahead and cut that off and show you how much actually was removed from the seat cover here and how nice it's going to lay. All right, so that's quite a bit there. I know it's an added step, but I definitely think it's going to give an added feature and look when it's all said and done. As you can see, this one's already done, but I want to show you what's involved in doing that. There's a good procedure there, and what it all boils down to is if you were at a car show and there were 2 seats by 2 different companies side by side, and they were the exact same seat, and one just looked a little better than the other one, maybe the judge doesn't know why, maybe the client didn't even know why. Basically, it's going to boil down to procedure. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the scrim off the back of this, and so that it's not as bulky and it's a nice tight top stitch, we're going to cut the side that we're folding over to. As you can see, I've already cut this piece down right here. So when it folds over, now this top stitch is just going to be a little thinner than it would be if there was 2 half-inch pieces or 3/4 inch pieces sewn together with all that extra bulk there. Let's go ahead and put that in, and we're also going to talk about how wide the gap of the actual top stitch is and how far apart the stitch length is. That might change the look of the design. I wanted to give you a really good view of the back side of this material, because not only did we slice that and make it a little thinner, but at the very end, we're going to notch in and come up just a little bit. This way, when we go to sew the next piece of material over the top of this, it's going to make the bulk right there very thin and easy to sew over, so it's not going to have a bulge. Now, we're going to go ahead and do that to both sides, here and here. And if you're getting your top stitch started and maybe it's a little wobbly or it doesn't look quite right, that's okay, because once again, you're going to sew over that and you won't see those first couple of stitches. Now, as I start this top stitch, I want you to notice a few things. On the top stitch, we want it a little wider, so I'm actually going to ride this outside edge right on the seam line. And the other thing that you might have noticed is I didn't do a reverse. I'm going to hand tie the knots at the top and bottom to make sure when we sew the other piece on, there's no chance that there's a reverse stitch line showing. That's just a very small detail that's going to make this seat stand out and look a little more professional. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and put the front seam in, which is going to be done pretty much in the same way. We did do a thread change so that there's a bit of a difference in between the two stitch lines. The other thing that we're going to do is, seeing that it's a front seam, we're going to bring the stitch line in quite a bit closer. So the two stitch lines together is going to be really nice and tight against this line. And it's going to add a little bit of detail there. Now at this point, most trimmers would be done. You go ahead and put the cover on, but there's still one more step if you're going for the full process here, and we're trying to make our work stand apart from the other trimmers out there. You're going to once again cut the excess off of the back of the material. That little tiny piece right there, it's just going to make the cover lay that much better, and it's one more step that's going to set you apart from the other trimmers out there.